When I was 23, I was the most lost, the most lonely, and the most confused as to who I was, what I wanted, where I was going. And now, 8 years later, at the ripe old age of 31, in Gemini season, I can say with full confidence, with my full chest, that I love my life. I love who I am. I feel at peace. I feel abundant. And I feel grateful for who I have become and the life that I've built. So, I'm here to share all the things that helped me get here with you, with the hopes that maybe it helps you too. Welcome to How to Be with me, Cara G, a mini series where I'm doing just that. I am sharing all of the things that have got me to where I am today. Again, with the hopes that maybe it helps you do the same, right? So today we're going to get into how to be yourself. What the hell does that even mean? And how do you get there, right? And throughout my life, um, for some context, throughout my life, I have done a billion different things. I have listened to hundreds and thousands of relationship podcasts. I've read many a book on attachment theory and anxious attachment, all these things. And I'm going to get into all the nitty-gritty of what has actually helped me. And I can kind of break it into three different kind of groups. First group being getting to know myself, turning inward, okay? The second thing is seeing myself through the lens of other people, slash the lens of people who love me and who I love. And then lastly, it's looked like practicing who I want to be, who I want to become, right? And these three groups, when you put them together as like a journey, right? I've gone on a journey. That's how I've learned how to be myself. I've gathered all the knowledge and wisdom and practice to now say, like, I know who I am and I know how to be who I am because I've embodied her, I've become her, and I'm not coming from a place of I've got it all figured out, okay? That's not what this is about. But what I want you to leave this video with are action items and actionable steps of where to begin. Because 8 years ago, I had no idea where to begin. I was like, I didn't even know that I wasn't being who I really was, that I wasn't being my true authentic self. I was wearing a bunch of masks and I was under a bunch of expectations and a bunch of judgment and a bunch of shame. I had all these layers of gobbledygook on top of me. And so here I am wanting to share the things that I've done that have worked for me, right? Again, this is not a one size fits all, but these are pretty general enough to like get you started and get to scratch the surface so that you know where to start, okay? So, it's about 7 different things, I would say. 6 or 7 different things. 6, 7. It's my birthday. But if you're still here, welcome. We're gonna have some fun. So the first tool, practical tool that I ever started using and experimenting with was a diary. I've been on a journey of like literally recently of calling my journal my diary moving forward because journaling, and maybe it is journaling for you to start because I don't know about you, but for me, when I first started turning inward, I was like, I had no access to the inside of my mind. I had no access to my subconscious, right? And what journaling does, or keeping a diary, is it grants you access to your subconscious mind. We don't think about it, but if we're being honest with ourselves, we have so much programming, right? We have so much programming that we have to get through before we can get to our subconscious. And what writing does, especially when you're writing automatically, which if you don't know what automatic writing is, it's when you sit down and you just brain dump any single thing that comes into your mind. You're not sitting down to journal necessarily your deepest, darkest thoughts all the time. That does happen and that is helpful, but what I've done and what has helped me is automatic writing, which first thing I do when I wake up in the morning is I open up my journal. And there's been times in my life where I do this every single day, and then there's times in my life when I don't do this every single day, but this has been a massive practice when I was doing it every single day that like totally changed my life and helped me get to know myself better, right? I wake up, and I just start writing down every single thought that comes into my head, and I do it for 3 pages, okay? This practice comes from Julia Cameron, the author of The Artist Way. That book is incredible. If you are an artist, I don't know who you are, where you're coming from, but even if you're not an artist, creativity is like an integral part of being human. And that book is all about getting in touch with your creativity, which looks like automatic writing, right? Because our creativity and our subconscious and our inner selves, they're all the same thing, right? So if you can tap into your subconscious, you can tap into your creativity, and you can tap into your creativity, then you can tap into your authentic self, right? So automatic writing for 3 pages, which just looks like if you don't know what to say, which when I first started, I never knew what to say. I was just like, I don't know what to say. I'm doing this because someone said it was a good idea, which this might be you, right? But it's important that you just write that down. I don't know what to say. Someone told me this is a good idea. I'm trying this out just to see. And you might feel really silly and really stupid when you first start this, but I'm telling you, it's going to change your life. Like, and if it doesn't, keep writing and keep writing and keep writing and do it every single day judiciously. And is that the right way to use that word? Anyway, every single day. And I'm telling you, things will start to go on the page that you were like, oh, I didn't know that was in there. Like for me, for example, what that looked like for me is it started off with me just writing all the things I was sad about. Literally, my first entry in 2018 was like, I am so lonely. I am like, want somebody to love me. I want to be loved. Like, why can't I catch a break in the romance department? Like, I'll take anybody, please, for the love of God. Like, it was just so, oh my God, I have so much grace for me 8 years ago because she was just like so down bad and so wanting to be loved and to be in a relationship. And I don't have that anymore. Like, that is something that I am totally open to, but I do not experience those feelings of loneliness anymore, not in that way. And what came out of this journaling experience for me over the last 8 years has looked like me meeting my inner child. It's looked like, which is something else, which is number 2 of going inward, is doing inner child work, but it has granted me the opportunity to speak with my higher self and my higher mind and my creativity and all of my grief and all my pain and all my hurt. And I discovered my father wounds and I discovered my mother wounds and I discovered my anxious attachment and I discovered all of these things about myself that I did not have access to before doing this practice. So that is number 1. Pick up a journal or a diary, if you will, um, and tell it all your secrets. And I'm telling you, like, at least for me, it was really hard at first. It was really difficult. Just like getting myself to do it, I would procrastinate and procrastinate and procrastinate. And then eventually, when I just decided, I was like, okay, I can see how this is helping me sift through my emotions. Like, I'm also an incredibly emotional person. So just getting all the shit in my head onto a page was like incredibly helpful. And I still do it to this day because of how powerful it is. I've started a business that I can trace back to journalings about and my diary entries about, thinking about them. Like it wasn't a thought in my head until I had written it out in paper and kind of manifested it. I've started LLCs. I have manifested relationships. I have, you know what I mean? Like I've just incredibly powerful. I learned things about myself that I did not know were true. I learned things about myself that I didn't even know were possible. It's crazy. So that's the first thing of turning inward that I would do to help you get to know yourself, because you can't be yourself until you know yourself, right? And that leads me into the second thing of the turning inward practice, and that is doing inner child work. And if I know like therapy speak is in the zeitgeist right now, and everyone's talking about, the work, the work, the work, and the work is a real thing, okay? Because it takes work to keep digging and asking questions, especially when it makes you uncomfortable and like nobody wants to sit here and think that there's anything wrong with them, but when there's certain patterns happening in your life, it's like at some point you're like, I want to stop being so freaking sad all the time. And that's where I got, right? So my journaling led me into inner child work, right? And also podcasts and books that I had read. I read the book Attached. I think, it's a great entry point. I read the book How to Do the Work by Dr. Lorera, I can't remember, but she's I think she's holistic psychology on Instagram. Anyway, great entry points for books to read. But inner child work for me started post journaling by doing an inner child meditation on YouTube. You can literally Google, like, just search any inner child meditation, and you're gonna find the most popular one. And I think it's like 30 minutes long or something. And, the idea of it sounds kind of scary, but the reality of it was just incredibly moving for me. Like, I had never like, we all think of at least for me, like, for me, this looked like, for me, my relationship to my little self was like, "Oh my gosh, I was a dancer, and I was so loud, and I never shut up. I was always talking, and I loved to be goofy." And those were all things that I knew about myself, right? And those are all things that I had already had in my adult self at 23, 24, 25. I already knew these things about myself, but the inner child work came into play when I was about 25. It was, like, right when COVID happened, and, and I had just been hearing about it and hearing about it and hearing about it, and I was like, do I really want to do that? Am I ready for this? Like, because some people they have experiences that are really emotional and really powerful, and I just didn't know if I had the capacity for that. And when I did that inner child meditation, I have never cried so much in my entire life. I'm telling you, I literally saw little me standing in front of me. Little me was about 5 years old, and she was a little bit chubby, and she had dark brown hair and big blue eyes, and she had these short little bangs, and she looked at me, and she was just so sad. She looked like she had been neglected her entire life. And in this meditation, I got to hug her and tell her that she was safe and tell her that she was loved. And that experience gave me the ability to give my adult self grace and to see my adult self with loving eyes, like through the eyes of a parent, kind of even through the eyes of God. Like, whether you're spiritual or not, the idea of God is that they're all loving, and and there's an unconditional love there, and that is what I gave myself the opportunity to feel for my little self and for my adult self, because up until that point I had been so hard on myself. I was like, basically, like, you're fat, you're a piece of shit, like nothing you do is good enough, just like the whole gamut of negative self-talk. And when I met my inner child and I turned inward, that was what it, like, flipped a switch. It My journal entries went from I'm doing everything wrong, and I'm unlovable, and I'm not worthy of the things that I desire because I don't work hard enough to, oh my god, it is such a I am such a miracle of a person. Like, I have so many skills and talents. I try my hardest. I'm full of love and light. And it didn't happen quite overnight, like the snap of a finger, but it totally shifted my perspective, right? I looked inward and I was like, oh, who I thought I was somebody who had to keep trying to be better and better and better and better to receive the love that she wanted. But who I actually am is someone who is love, and who is inherently worthy of love, you know? And that was a crazy switch for me. So that is like turning inward, doing those two things, the getting to the core of who you are, like those are incredible tools that have worked for me that to this day I still practice. Like 8 years later, I'm practicing that. I am journaling pretty much every day, and me and little Cara, we're locked in. We're locked in. Everything I do for her. Like, she has totally changed my perspective on how I move through the world. And a lot of the things that I do for her. Like, I'm more playful, I'm more creative, I'm more open, I'm more curious, I'm more compassionate. These are all things that she was, but I had let myself become hardened to her, so I neglected her for years and years, and I wondered why I was so freaking sad and why I didn't feel like myself, because I wasn't being myself. Because myself isn't this ashamed person who's not creative. My real self is somebody who is abundant and light and bright and youthful and playful. Yeah. So that kind of leads me into the other piece of how I became myself. And how I continue to practice myself is like I allowed myself to see myself through the lens of other people, through relationship, right? And like the number one alchemizer was all the romantic relationships I've been in, right? Nothing is going to show you who you are more than another person standing in front of you acting as a mirror. Okay? They're going to show you the good, they're going to show you the bad, they're going to show you the ugly. So for me, I was a person who was afraid of romantic relationships my entire adult life. Like I had a boyfriend when I was 19, like my senior year of 18, 19, my senior year of high school into my freshman year of college. And then I just said, no, thank you. And my first relationship, positive experience, loved that kid, like great boyfriend, 10 out of 10 from what I can remember from my child brain. But I just, because I had a positive experience, I just, when I got to college, I gained some weight. I felt really bad about myself. I didn't want to be perceived. I didn't trust men. I was like, well, I had one good one, so, let's not jinx it. Yeah. And I just didn't relate to men all through 4 years of college. And I kept myself blocked from that experience of being mirrored. I was afraid of it. It scared me. I was too afraid of having my insecurities mirrored back to me. I was too afraid of like having a man comment on my body or tell me anything that I already thought about myself to confirm, what I thought about myself was true, right? I just totally blocked myself from that. And then, as I got a little bit older and I was, and I started doing this kind of who am I work, right? How do I be myself work? Um, I started becoming a little bit more confident in my body and a little bit more open, and I started dating. And oh my God, when I started dating, I was like, holy shit. And I started really dating when I kind of already started this work. So I think I was like 25. It was like COVID times. Yes, I was dating during COVID. So me. Um, but it wasn't until then when I started dating like my first boyfriend post high school. So this was from 19 to 25, right? No boyfriend. I had dated a couple people, had some relations, but no boyfriend. And then come COVID, I had my first boyfriend. I'm thinking I've done all this work on myself. I've met my inner child. I've been journaling. Oh no. Oh no, honey. I met that first boyfriend and I mean, it was a very quick boyfriend, very quick fling, but it was quick, fast. It like burnt really bright, really fast, and then it burnt out so quick. And what that relationship showed me, kind of on like a I call it that was like my spiritual awakening. What that showed me was all of the shit that I had no idea about. Oh my God, I did not know I had as severe of an anxious attachment that I had. I had no clue. This man love bombed me, and I thought that he just thought I was great because I had been doing all this work on myself by myself. I thought, well, I love myself. I'm wonderful. I have all of these great qualities. And when I met him, he was like, yeah, you do. You are wonderful. You are great. He mirrored back to me all the things that I loved about myself until he didn't. And that's when it triggered all of my insecurities and my people pleasing. Oh my God, did I not know that I was a people pleaser? Jesus Christ, I had been people pleasing my whole entire life, but I had no idea. And talk about a not self. How do you be yourself? It's by learning who your not self is, right? And my not self, which is like the contrast, right? My not self is a people pleaser. My not self is anxiously attached to a man who is not emotionally available or emotionally attached to a man who is a little bit narcissistic. And he told me that he told me these things about himself. And I'm not trying to pathologize anybody, but like we ended things because he was like, I think I'm a narcissist. And I was like, we can make this work. 2 days later, I'm like, wait, you are a narcissist. um, so oh my God, like seeing yourself through the eyes of other people is going to show you exactly who you are and who you aren't. And when I say who you aren't, it's like you might be that person right now, but once you see that in yourself and you realize, oh my gosh, this does not resonate, that's when like the work begins of like, okay, but who am I actually if I take these things away? Because my people pleasing was programming, baby. I am not my programming. I am not my indoctrination. I am not my shame, my guilt, my sadness. No, those are my not self things. And as soon as I started relating to men, it was like him, he showed me my anxious attachment, and then, the next guy showed me, um, like, that I'm like, "Oh, I have a pattern of, like, attracting avoidant men. Why am I attracted to avoidant men? Oh, because I wanna save them." My not self theme is someone who wants to save men who don't wanna be saved. My not self theme is that. My not self and then the next guy I dated in my last relationship, he showed me what I value, right? And what I don't value. He showed me I went into relating to him with like no expectation, with no plan, with no nothing. And I left the relationship with him because he had no expectation, no plan, no nothing. And so like I met him and he showed me exactly what I was, which was somebody who was living unintentionally, which I've learned now that is my not self theme. My not self theme is living unintentionally. I am an incredibly intentional person. Isn't that crazy? Like, but I didn't know that about myself until I was in a relationship with him. So how do I be myself? How do you be yourself? How have I become myself is, oh my God, like relating to these men. Like not that I wasted 6 years of my life avoiding these relationships, but like, because everything happens in the due time. But I would have saved so much time if I would have just started relating. And it's not just men, I've also, I viewed myself through my relationships with my family, with my mom, with my dad. Like I've got a bunch of those wounds. And by viewing myself through my parents, I have given myself the ability to give them grace, which then helps me give myself even more grace because I'm only 50% of both of them. So all the problems that I have with my dad and all the problems that I saw in my parents in general, I'm like I treated them as separate from me, which I'm like, but if I'm being honest, that's not true, right? So that looked like me being really upset with my dad because he wasn't the kind of dad that I always wanted. And because I went through that grief, I could now appreciate the dad who he is, which helps me appreciate the parts of me who are like my dad. Instead of hating those parts of myself, I can now appreciate them as my gifts. And same thing with my mom. There's things about my mom that can be unhelpful, but I have those qualities. And now I can appreciate those qualities in me because every shadow has a light, And and in this practice of relating with other people, I can see both the light and the dark and I get to choose the light. Whereas before I was subconsciously choosing the dark because I wasn't aware of it, And I would have probably continued being unaware of it if I hadn't had the courage to start relating and seeing myself through the lens of other people, and more specifically the people that I love, because the people you love are going to show you the most accurate mirror. People who don't love you, they're going to show you some kind of weird mangled mirror that's like, is this even a mirror? I feel like I'm in a fun house. So that's kind of like, step one, go inward. Step two, view yourself through the lens of other people, relate, get the contrast, figure out who you are and who you aren't. My last relationship showed me what I valued, right? And I valued intention, I value integrity, I value creativity, I value curiosity, I value compassion, and he had some of these qualities, and he had all these qualities in different aspects, but they weren't the top of the list. And through that relationship I realized, oh, those are the top of my list, right? And then kind of step three, this like as I've moved along and I've started I started doing the inner child work, continued doing that, started dating, learned a bunch of stuff about myself, continued doing that. And then this third chapter that I've been doing, it's kind of like over the 8 years, has looked like practicing the things that I've come to know about myself. So it's like, okay, I've come to know what I value, right? And that's curiosity, integrity, creativity. Now, what does that look like in practice, right? And sometimes, at least in my experience, that has looked like having to leave relationships that do not align and do not resonate with me anymore. And that's really, really hard. Really freaking hard when you love someone, you know? And even, but like, even if I love someone, if loving them means that I can't be integrity with the things that I value, ooh, well, now I have to make the hard choice to walk away from that, because I can only be myself if I'm living in the things that I value, if I'm living in the integrity of what I value, if I am practicing what I'm writing down in my journal, if I'm saying like compassion and effort and curiosity and creativity are like the most important things to me in the people I love and in me, and I continue relating with somebody who isn't bringing that to the table, well, now I'm a liar. And now I'm becoming my not self theme, and I'm doing it consciously. Before I was doing it unconsciously, so it's like, no harm, no foul. But when I'm doing it consciously, well, that starts to eat away at my soul. And then I start doing things like people pleasing again. And I start doing things just because it's, somebody else wants to do it. And that eats away at me. And that brings me the opposite of peace, abundance, clarity, joy. Like, I live an abundant, more peaceful life now, an authentic life now, because I'm living in my authenticity. And authenticity looks like living in your values, and meeting your values and they call it work because it takes effort to do that. It is not easy to end friendships or relationships. It is not easy to show up for your journal every day if you know that it's important to you. It is not easy to eat the things that you said you were going to eat. It is not easy. It can be integrated, and it can become routine, and it can become easy, but to start, man, if you're going from a not self to a self, listen, in my experience, it has been and will continue to be forever work. It takes effort. It's not hard, but it takes effort. And I like to say that it's inspired effort. I am inspired to put this work in for myself so that I can be myself. Because I don't want to be anybody else. I don't want to be any other not self theme. I don't want to be my programming. I don't want to be my wounds. I don't want to be my trauma. I want to be Cara. And who is Cara? Well, I've discovered that Cara is joyful. Cara is excited. Cara is so fucking loving. Cara is curious. Cara is a wanderer. Cara is a peaceful person. Cara loves to relate. Cara loves to connect. That is who I am. That is how I have become myself, is by knowing those things and living them out to the best of my ability. And so those are the things that have helped me become myself from 8 years ago, not knowing who the hell I was, in any real way. I knew who I was on the surface, but my internal world was like chaos and sadness and depression and anxiety. And now I can say at 31 with my full chest that I am confident in who I am. And I'm confident in who I'm becoming, because I sit there and I commune with her every single day. And me and Cara, my higher self, my younger self, my inner self, my little self, we're communing every day in that diary, every day in that journal, and we're checking in. And I'm continuing to ask myself through these tools that I've collected, with the experience that I've gleaned, I'm checking in every day. Am I different? Am I changing? I'm asking myself these questions because I want to continue being at peace, continue being authentic. And sometimes that looks like changing. Listen, if this video has told you anything, it's told you that I have changed so much over the last 8 years, and I have allowed myself to do that because I've been open to the experience. And I think that's the number one thing, is like I've been living in alignment with my values by being open and being curious. And that's how I've done it. And so if any of that helped you or resonated at all, like, let me know which one you think you're gonna try in the comments. But that's how to be yourself on my mini series, How to Be with Cara G. Yeah, hopefully I'm gonna be making more of these videos. Oh, gunshots just went off in my neighborhood. That's scary. But thank you so much for joining me. I'm excited to make more of these videos. They'll maybe shorter in the future, but this one I just got really fired up. I got really excited. How to be yourself, man. What a concept. What a question. Let me know how you be yourself. Let me know how you have become yourself, how you are becoming yourself, and what you're excited to try, whether it's journaling, inner child work, relating, pick your poison. I wish you the best on your journey. That's all I got. Till next time. Bye.